The first line itself tells us a proper motivation for food intake. And the food taken should be properly digested and assimilated, and the proper elimination. The single definition of Arogya Lakshana actually fits into the gut health. So there starts our journey of importance to gut health. And these are the various methods, objective parameters, which have been meticulously tried out for assessing the gut health. They range from validated questionnaires for the quality of life and gut health, GI symptom scores, markers of functionality, markers of intestinal integrity, markers of intact immunity. But friends, now there is something else coming up. Now they say these objective parameters are very good, fine, but that is not enough. The perception of the individual is far more important or equally important as the objective assessment. And this can be obtained only by direct conversation by the doctor towards the patient for assimilating specific sensation regarding the gut health. This is primarily related to meal intake, sense of gratification, satiety, complete rectal evacuation, evacuation of fecus, flatus, irritations. Can we not think about Vegadharana? Can we not think about our usual case sheets? Can we not think about the way we interrogate our patients? This is exactly the way we interrogate. By the way, this is not something new to them. Even Hippocrates actually said that these are the basic ways of taking a case. But in due course of time, the Western medicine has actually forgotten the perception of the patient. But we have still maintained this tenure. But I think we need to work more intensively, because these sensations are now taken into account. The sensation regarding thirst, taste, smell, desire for specific types of food, cultural background, and psychological stress. Now there is a paramount importance invested in the personal perception of the individual in terms of gut health, where we can actually play a very decisive role. Now, what are the things actually which will bring about the disruption? The food additives, the pesticide and drug residues in the food. We can think about AMA and we can think about Visha. So these are the ones which will result in error in metabolism in the long term, also in the short term period. Now, they are found to induce inflammation and metabolic syndrome in the long run. As we mentioned, or as we discussed earlier, diet is the one which will actually shape the gut microbiota. So we need to be careful about the diet. And further, there are many studies which tell that eating from home has reduced, eating out has exponentially increased, proportion of fresh food and traditional food has decreased, processed food that we can put under the pocket of samskara also has increased. Samskara in the wrong sense actually. Now physical activity levels have reduced. By the way, there has been overexertion, which can be brought under the domain of Ati Vyayama. That it is either lack of activity or overactivity. The Artha Shakti Pravana of Vyayama is not propagated. So that is again another place where we can actually put forward our banner. The circadian rhythm is obviously disrupted. The sleep pattern is absolutely tarnished. And there has been an increase in day and night inversion. We are not nocturnal animals. We are not the ones who will be benefited by day and night inversions. But these are the trends which have again has an impact on the gut health. Now, high fat diet, high refined carbohydrate, we know these are the basic villains. They're always the villains. And now we have our solace in dietary fiber. But we will discuss why dietary fiber is so important. We can also think about the whole grains, our shali, shashtigam, why they are important. Now, what supports the gut? A balanced diet of vegetables and fiber content, a moderate consumption. Meat is not condemned, but a moderate consumption, but total abstinence from tobacco and alcohol, maintenance of normal body weight, and control of stress. Now, friends, I would like to bring to your notice, just think of our Dinacharya. What does it do? Entire course of Dinacharya, we try to bring about Agnidipti, we try to bring about Vada Nilomana, plus something else. Agnidipti and Vatanilomana is also the base for treatment. There is always a judicious thought in controlling the Kapham and Medas. Be it Udvartanam, be it Vyayamam, be it the walking after consumption of food in very small proportions at the end of night, and postprandial walking. There has always been a thought process behind to curb the excess accumulation of energy in the body. So these, in a way, we can tell that this is a as they say that multifactorial disease concept, we have got a multifactorial health concept. Now coming back to the food, it is the most influential factor for the gut health, and it continues lifetime. It regulates the gut-brain function. A healthy diet means a healthy gut microbiota, a proper physical mental health. An unhealthy diet will disturb the gut microbiota, will cause to the dysfunctioning of the gut-brain axis, that is microbiota, gut-brain axis, and eventually disease. Now, dietotherapy is an improvement in the health dietary adjustment. This is a new terminology. How does a diet rich in dietary fiber increase gut microbiota? It increases the versatility and diversity. It will regulate glycometabolism by improving glucose control and insulin sensitivity. It will modulate the lipid metabolism, and it will promote the brain health. So it will do this in a diet rich in dietary fiber is undeniable, undebatable from many perspectives. And in Ayurveda, we give due importance to dietary fiber. And there has always been a hype on traditional fermented foods. Although we are not much in terms of fermented foods, the traditional food items which have having thousands of years of human trial, they can be consumed. Now, interestingly, there has been a paradigmical shift from mere study on calories and nutrients of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, the MUFA and the PUFA. It is good, no doubt. But now the studies are revealing that it is not just a calorie, it is not the nutrient value, it's a diet quality. We were talking about the Rajasic, Tamasic food items. We were talking about the quality of food. Now that is where we can pinch in our Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic attributes. And nutritional psychiatry is a new area where they believe that the food will play an important part in the prevention and therapy of mental disorders in future. The dietary patterns of mammals are linked with the gut microbiota, and they will vary with different dietary compositions. So no wonder we are having n number of dietary compositions. Why? If you look across the literature, we will find so many dietary compositions because it has to compensate so many requirements. And the human appetite is also believed to be modulated by the gut health. The food taste, we have got a certain food taste affinity. This is also based on the promotion or the proliferation. That is, it is assumed there is a hypothesis which says that the microbiota requires certain type of foods for its proliferation. So you have a liking for certain food taste. As well as gut microbiota is linked to many eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa. Now we are talking in terms of our digestive aspect. One second. Now here comes the importance of Agni. This concept of Agni is so cardinal because it is a sum total of all energy manipulations that we can talk about. So we have got an explicit description of Vishamagni, Tishnagni, Mandagni, and how to bring about Samagni. So if Agni is not given importance, our concept of health and disease would shatter. Also, Acharya, we have got a beautiful description of Koshta, Krura Koshta, which will take a long time for digestion, where the bowel evacuation is irregular. Mridu Koshta, which is very sensitive, where there is a very short digestion period. And Madhyama Koshta, Madhya Koshta, which will acclaim a proper digestion. Friends, what I'm trying to tell is that our concept of Agni, our concept of Koshta is going to be on an international platform. It's already on an international platform. When we deal with international pursuits, when we have to talk in terms of publications, we need to give a very generous, a very profound explanations. So we need to be equipped with the maximum details. Oh God. Something else has come, I think. 1 second here. Is the screen visible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The screen is
Something has
visible.
come. Something has come in between, I think. 1 second. Yeah, now things okay. Am I audible, dear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. If I'm fast, please let me know. Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, please. Your turn. Now, here comes the beauty of our rasa, the Mathura Amla Lavana Katu Tikta Kashaya, which will aid in strength and stability. It has got a physical impact, it has got a psychological impact. Stimulation, alertness to the mind, laxative effect, enhancement of taste, digestion, penetrating to the, even to the mind, local action of vermicidal. It has got almost all the tendencies, almost all the temperaments which is required in a a physical psychological platform. That is exactly why we have been recommended to have a balanced diet comprising of the Shat Rasas daily. It makes sense now. Now I would like to remind you that in the Dinacharya procedure, we will see that the Ruchyam and the Deepanam component, the Vyayamam, Snanam, Dandadhavanam, Jihva Nirlehanam, Ushnodaka Gandusham, and Tambula Sevanam. Now, the mere tooth brushing does not merely clean the oral cavity. It has got a Ruchyam effect. The entire Cambodium of the Dinacharya, there have been special principles which will aid in improving the taste sensation and the digestive fire. So it works from the taste buds across the alimentary tract. I will just go a little deeper. Taste buds serve as a first stage of gustatory signal processing. Now that is, a study says so. And it will guide metabolism. So that is exactly what we were thinking about, how it is, how Tambula Sevanam can help in Agnidipti. Anything which will stimulate the taste bud can also serve as an can also stimulate secrete regulatory hormones in response to nutrient stimulation. The secretory responses of the digestive hormones, the signals are sent to the digestive organs, and they will help in the metabolic system to respond, such as insulin secretion to control the elevated blood glucose. We should be always reminded of the fact that the Dinacharya is not a basic hygiene measure. It is not a disciplined measure for self-care. It has got very subtle implications. The oral stimulation by food is perhaps the most richly multimodal sensory experience. It's not moving, I think. Yeah, I'm sorry. 1 second. Something has gone wrong. Yeah. It's not coming. Now, something is wrong, I think. Now, the taste sensation has got influenced by vision. The taste sensation is influenced by smell. The taste sensation is influenced by emotion. There are numerous studies which says, there are numerous experiments which says that taste is not an isolated Cambodium. It is not an isolated compartment. It works as a multi-modal integration. Now here we also talk about the Pathyam. We were discussing about how a healthy diet would help in maintaining health or the gut health. Our concept of Pathyam actually suits into the concept of anything which is congealed to the body tissue, relished by the person, that is taking into account his emotional, psychological aspiration, which keeps him healthy, which takes care of the physiological homeostasis, which is conducive for the mind and intellect, and which prevents diseases. So this can be understood that this is concurrently related with gut health management. Further, we were talking about how gut health is influenced by satiety. Our Artha Sauhityam, the concept of taking Lakhu and Guru Ahara very judiciously. There is a satiety index which has been proposed by Susanna Holt. This is an index which is freely available, which can be used for practical purpose. Our concept of Athyashana, Samashana and Vishamashana. These are the very concrete concepts of how we should be managing the gut health. And if we are at fault, there is a compensatory method of, if there is an incomplete digestion, we can sleep during the day on empty stomach. That is the compensatory mechanism for managing indigestion. So to sum up, we saw that the food items, which the food strategy involved in enhancing gut health is very, very much in relationship with our concept of Agni, Jadaragni, our concept of Pathyam, our concept of Rasam, our concept of satiety, and a food which is indigenous, palatable. Indigenous in a sense, we always give importance to seasonal and desha, indigenous food items. Healthy, cost-effective, user-friendly, acceptable, available, and compliable. When you talk in terms of food, these are the key words which should come to us. Now, we take another stand. We're talking about now chronobiology. It's a field of biology that examines periodic phenomena in living organisms and how they adapt to the solar and lunar related rhythms. It is basically based on biological rhythms. Now, this Nobel Prize was awarded for circadian rhythm. This is a slide which actually I've shared from a colleague of mine. They work exclusively on chronobiology. So they made this comparison. Now, what are biological rhythms? Biological rhythms are functions that recur in time in a repeated order with a repeated interval between its occurrence is known as biological rhythm. And why do we need them? Because the organisms have to adapt and live with the environment rhythms around them. For this purpose, biological rhythm allows the organism to harmonize with the environment. There are two terms which I would like to introduce. Must be familiar to you actually. Entrainment is the process of aligning the biological rhythm with the environment, and any external or environmental clue that entrains or synchronizes the biological rhythm comes under I cannot spell this, I'm sorry. These components are light, temperature, social interactions, pharmacological manipulations, exercise, eating and drinking pattern. We can think of an example of entrainment. We know about a small baby who can sleep for maybe 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours, and then suddenly get up at the midnight. No idea of day and night. That is because they have not started the entrainment or aligning the biological rhythm with the environmental stimulus. But as the baby grows, as the infant after become toddler, the baby will start to wake up in the morning and go to bed a little early, then late, of course. But the idea is entrainment is a process of aligning the biological rhythm with an environmental stimulus. In the baby's case, it is a free run. The entrainment has not occurred. Now, when we talk about chronobiology or biological rhythms, we are undoubtedly talking about durations. We know the circadian duration lasts for 24 hours, the sleep-wake cycle, the infradian, which is lasting for more than 24 hours, that is the menstrual cycle, which comes after 28 days, the ultradian, shorter than a day, and there are many more. I've given a small list here. We can see that in our science, we give a lot of importance to these seasonal variations and tidal rhythms. These are rhythms. This will come in the concept of Kala. Our concept of Kala can be somewhere, we can think about concept of Kala when we talk about rhythm. Now we are going to talk about the circadian rhythm. That is our topic of discussion here. The best studied, the most profusely debated one is the circadian rhythm. It comes from the Latin word circa, means around, and dies meaning day. It is actually talking about a day. So of course we have to talk about circadian, means we are talking about Dinacharya in some way or the other. They are regulated by the circadian clock, and these are the most important circadian rhythms: the body temperature, hormone secretion, metabolism, sleep wake cycle. A circadian rhythm is roughly a 24-hour cycle in the physiological process of the living being. Now, it is endogenously generated and can be regulated to the external stimuli. Now, we are talking about chrononutrition. There are many aspects of circadian rhythm. Maybe we will talk about food. Chrononutrition is a branch which is dealing with circadian rhythm and the diet. Now, food at the wrong time can disturb the peripheral clock and break the metabolic balance. We'll give an example. We start with an example is the morning we are free, we are on an empty stomach, we are having enough amount of digestive enzymes, we digest our breakfast, followed by lunch, and then we have the dinner, a quiet dinner. During this entire process, what we are doing is our glucose is getting utilized, and there is a little bit amount which is being converted into fat. The circadian clock does not stop working. It starts to work on the burning fat towards the end. Then it will reset and repair and be in a rejuvenation mode. The enzymes which will break down the fats and the toxins are started up. There will be a repair of the DNA which has been damaged during the daytime. So there is a lot of work to be done at the later part of the night. But suppose we do an erratic eating technique, the whole system will run into chaos. There was a groundbreaking study which was done on mice of the same parent, same temperature, born to the same situations. The only difference was that a group of mouses were given Western food unrandomly. They were allowed to eat as and when they want. The others were given a specified time period. What happened was that they were keenly noticed after 18 weeks. They found that the ones which were given food in their own fashion, let loose fashion, became obese, and the others remained healthy. Now this was a revolutionary change, because till then people believed that the quantity of food, the content of the food was important. Then there was a realization that when to take food. That is our concept of timely food intake. To take food only when we are hungry, not to take intermittent food. The rhythmicity in the food was brought to notice. And then they started upon this concept of chrononutrition. Now here we are talking about food as a tool, as a health behavior. Now when we talk health, food as a tool, we should remember our concept of hita and ahidam. Here we are visualizing an individual as a responsible person, not as a passive person who's fed on medicines, who's fed. Food cannot be taken as in the dosage form. That is exactly where the multivitamin drug therapy was a failure. Food has to be relished, food has to be smelled, food has to be tasted. You cannot think of food in tablets, no. And when food becomes medicine, it is health. And when medicine becomes food, it becomes a disease. So here, in Ayurvedic concept, and now the contemporary world also believes that food is a very important tool. Our Aushadakala, as we can see, is in relation with our Annakala. So this is a beautiful example of how Acharyas how our science has understood the relationship between food-food reaction, food-drug reaction. Now we'll come down to, many studies have been done that meal frequency and meal size can be accounted to time of the day and and more precisely the biological day, not the clock time. The daily feeding rhythm, it is a self-enforcing mechanism, because food itself is an outcome and an input. That is, it can become an outcome and it can become a decisive input. It can take a decision. So it is actually a double-ended sword. That is why we should take it with care. Now, how the circadian changes will affect. They will function through absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of drug and nutrient. See, the chronopharmacology, chrononutrition, they all work in terms of specific guidelines. Timing, amount, and composition of food is cardinal. Because the improper timing, improper amount, and improper composition will have a negative impact on the food and consequently the human health and result in diseases. We'll take an example of Ratricharya for our convenience. We have got a certain ground rules for Ratricharya. Food should be consumed, light food should be consumed, lesser food in the first 3 hours of night, and after meal, rest should be taken, walk 100 steps, lie down on the left lateral position, that is a favored one, and not to consume curd at night. So there are basic recommendations. Now this, as you can see, is totally in terms of circadian cycle, because in the night time there is melatonin level will rise, only then we will sleep. So if there is an artificial lighting, we will not have the levels of melatonin will not increase and the sleep will not occur. So we'll have a disturbed sleep. Nocturnal eating results in metabolic disruption. There is a very profound evidence that eating large amount of food, eating just before sleep, these can cause metabolic disorders. The energy metabolism is less efficient during evening. Fat oxidation is lower in the evening compared to that in the morning. And the foods that we take in the evening, these are cross-sectional studies which are done, says that food which are taken in the evening are more energy dense, and they are typically most energy dense meal of the day. And obese people seem to be consuming greater proportion of daily energy in the evening. Now, this must have been the reason why we have got a sober protocol for Ratricharya. And there has been a study that the insulin response to food intake in night working nurses is more pronounced in the night compared with morning and evening. Now, experimental studies have also shown that the plasma glucose level will peak around midnight. And the rhythmicity of glucose tolerance is related to circadian rhythm of insulin secretion. Now, there have also been very convincing or compulsive studies which show that if we consume lower amount of food, there is a greater chance of having low BMI. And parallel with high energy intake will increase, that is in night, will increase the risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes. Now we can understand why Ratricharya includes Tripala Churna, why there is a provision for Chankramana after post meal in the Ratricharya. Postprandial walking is a better way for lowering glycemic effect of dinner. And the slow post meal walking reduces postprandial glycemia. Now coming to the rhythmic food. So we were just discussing on how a very simple concept. Actually, we have got each and every concept of ours can be elaborated, can be thought for the whole day, because each and every concept has got a very subtle and a gross implication. Now we have always bent on rhythmic food intake because it will control the daily rhythm through the enteric nervous system. And the habitual intake will actually train our hunger. The same daily schedule, that is eating in an orderly fashion, orderly time, not erratic time, will help in diminishing the high fat diet induced obesity. Snacking or intermittent eating, this is condemned in Ayurveda, and eating in a non-hungry state, again which we do not agree with, is very determinal in energy regulation and can always lead to weight gain. Now we understand why this weight gain is coming again and again. What we need to understand that going out of a normal weight, that is kapha meda accumulation, that is imbalance in energy is manifested as an outcome of obesity. It is actually a vyadhi sankara. What we see in obesity is just one outcome or just one indication of a metabolic imbalance. Now we come to the concept of nutrigenomics. I hope I may take 10 more minutes. I hope it's okay. Hello? Yeah, I'll just burst through. Now, nutrigenomics is a study of interaction between genes and diet. This is a very interesting topic again. These interactions are endowed with three interactions. Direct interactions, that is, a nutrient may sometimes interact with the receptor and it will act as a transcription factor and result in gene expression. There will be epigenetic interaction when the nutrient can alter the structure of the DNA. And then there are genetic variations, and the genetic variation can alter the gene functionality. The mechanism is that there is an altered metabolism. There is an altered dietary requirement for nutrients. Now, we have believed that nutrition or food will interfere with molecular and mechanisms of an organism. That is why nutrition takes a central stage in Ayurvedic therapy with a personalized nutrition protocol.